So when it comes to producing and mixing indie pop vocals, the game really comes down to this question. How can I solve the problem of impact? What I mean by that is, what are some effects and techniques I can use on my vocals that can position the song to have a strong emotional impact on the listener? One of those listeners, of course, being you, the creator. So that's your job in production and post-production and mixing, right? Once you've done the best and you've recorded the best lead vocal you can get and you've got some good takes, then it's all about how can I maximize this? And that, my friend, is what I'm here to help you with today. In this video, you're going to learn my top 5 techniques for producing indie pop vocals. Let's jump right in. Sliding in at number 5 is the mono vocal doubles technique. So for this, and to illustrate this, I'm going to show you, this is my remake of the song Kyoto by Phoebe Bridgers, and it sounds like this. What do you notice about the vocal sound? If you really paid attention, you may have noticed that the vocal doesn't feel like it's super spread out. It feels like there's a bit of a tunnel effect down the middle. It has that mono effect. Well, why is that? Well, that's because we have the lead vocal here, we've got the 2 doubles here, but these 2 doubles are not panned left and right. You may have assumed that whenever you record doubles, you need to pan them left and right. So let's try that first. Let's just put this on and see what that sounds like. I'm gonna kill you if you don't beat me to it. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. In fact, some of you may actually like that sound better. That's very reasonable to have that preference. But what I hear there is it sounds more modern. And when, for the most part, when you're creating indie pop and indie rock and these types of genres, you don't want it to sound super modern and super stereoized. You want to retain a bit of that analog flair, that retro flair. And one of the ways you can do that is by just not panning those doubles left and right, and instead just bring those vocal doubles right down the middle and create that tunnel where you've got the lead vocal down the middle that's mono, and then 2 doubles that are just stacked, and they're all down the middle. And that sounds like this. Dreaming through Tokyo skies, I wanted to see the world. Then I flew over the ocean, and I'll change my mind. All right, sliding in at number 4 is the Washy slap delay technique. So for this is my version of the song Beth/Rest by Bon Iver. It sounds like this. Said your love was gone, standing up on it, so there are a few effects on this, and I'm going to turn most of them off just so we can really hone in on that slap delay. So we've got 4 different effects on return tracks here. I'm going to mute the first 3, and then we're just going to focus on this slap delay here. What I want you to notice about this slap delay is how it's not super dry. It's very washy and warbly. It swims around. Listen. How do you get that sound? Well, here is just the initial slap delay sound. Right? We just got slightly offset left and right, feedback at 0. It's the most basic slap delay settings. Well, the first thing you can do is add some type of like a chorus, flanger, phaser, one of those types of effects that can modulate that delay signal. Again, we're on a return track here. That way we can really customize this isolated signal here with this delay. So then the next thing I added is a chorus plugin. I'll put the depth at 100%, and this is what creates that swimming, that warbly effect. It gives it that extra underwater type of flair, and then underwater type of flare. I don't feel like the flare does not fit with underwater. That was a very bad descriptive word. But moving on, we've got the little plate here. This is a reverb. So now what we're doing here is we're taking that delay signal, running it through a bunch of chorus, and then we're running that signal, that chorused delay signal, through this reverb. So that's what creates then the washy slap delay. So it's a stack of 3 plugins on this return track in this way. See, here's without it. Here's with it. And then let's bring that down to a reasonable volume in the mix. We'll turn on the other effects, and here we go. All right, technique number 3 for producing indie pop vocals is the Alterboy parallel track. Now, I'm going to show you this technique using a remake that I did of the song Somebody Else by the 1975. It sounds like this. What do you notice about the vocal sound? It has a bit of that whoa, whoa, monster quality to it, right? So how do you achieve that? Well, let's solo that first of all. Right? So that is the sound that's layered in with the lead vocal. So how do you get this Alterboy parallel track sound? Well, you just duplicate the original lead vocal track. This is the same audio. However, if you have the time, I definitely recommend that you experiment and record an additional take, and then put the Alterboy on it and see if you like that better. Because that might sound better than this, but I just threw this together, so I was probably lazy, and that's why I didn't do that. But it can sound better if you actually use a different take and then put the Alterboy on it and then layer it in with the lead. But in any case, you still get the same type of effect. So once you have your duplicated track or your double track, now you just throw a bunch of Alterboy on it. First though, just run it through some tuning, put some nice auto tune on there, and then after that, run it through some Alterboy. The main effect that is being added here is that lowering of the formant, and that's what creates that monster effect. I got this at -7. I also turn up the drive a bit, so we add some distortion to the sound. And then we got 2 more plugins on this train. The next one, this is Microshift. This is like a chorus doubler type of effect because I wanted to spread that signal, spread this track out wide. Since the main lead vocal track was fairly mono, I thought it sounded better if this sort of wraps around that lead vocal. And then finally, we're just using EQ to filter out the low end and filter out the high end. The high end here is especially important because this area up here in the 5, 6, 8K range, that is where you want to hear the regular dry lead vocal. You don't want to hear this Alterboy sound with all the crispiness on it up in here. You want that to be more in this range. And so when you layer that in with the lead, this is the sound that you get. Don't want your body, but I hate to think about you with somebody else. And then just blend it in. Here's without it. And here's with it. All right, technique number 2 is the chorus harmony vocal. Now for this, we're gonna use the same remake we used for number 5, which was the mono vocal doubles, which is the Phoebe Bridgers remake of the song Kyoto. So when I play this chorus here, listen to that harmony vocal. It's on the right side of the stereo field. Right? We just got a nice little harmony vocal that's blending in there. And one thing that I want you to notice about this is, so the harmony vocal is on the right side. It's pan to the right. What's pan to the left is a trumpet sound, and it's basically playing the same thing. It's not 100% the same thing, but they are locking in and sort of occupying the same space. So you have the trumpet sound on the left, you got the harmony vocal on the right, and then they just play together really well. Right? And then when you add that in and combine that with all the other tracks, now, I also think I do have some extra reverb on this track as well, right? So this harmony track, I've got some extra saturation, some extra reverb on it so that it has more space than just the dry lead vocal does. And then one more thing that I'll mention about, because it's really hard to teach, like, here's how you sing harmonies, because it's very relative to what the song wants, where the song is going, what is the mood of the song. If you feel like you're struggling with harmonies, I would say go and do a couple covers. You don't have to recreate the whole production, but just kind of maybe grab your guitar or your keyboard, record the vocal track, and then go and play around with the harmony and try to copy the harmony that you hear on this other song. And that will help you to start building those connections so that you can then apply them to your own productions and your own songs. Alright, now real quick before we get to number 1, I want to give you a gift, and it is my vocal EQ and compression guide. You can find a link in the description below. If you ever feel confused about EQ and compression and you feel like you're making just a bunch of random moves and you don't know if it's helping or not, then this is going to be such a game changer. This will give you a visual understanding of how to use EQ correctly on your vocals and then how to compress the vocal as well so that you get a nice punchy sound that fits perfectly in the mix. So I'll leave a link in the description below. It's 100% free. Be sure to check that out if you have been struggling with EQ and compression. All right, let's move on to number 1. And number 1 is boost the highs with saturation instead of an EQ plugin. So to show you what this looks like, here is a remake of the song Back to School by Porches. It sounds like this. I post what I did, going back to school. Now, do you notice how it has a nice sheenness on the top end? That is not coming from a boost on an EQ. I've got some compression on here. I've got some EQ. But as you can see, it's basically just doing cuts. Again, if you want to learn more about that, just download the guide below, the vocal EQ and compression guide I just talked about. What is really giving this that shimmery boost on the top end is a saturation plugin. And this is, in this case, this wonderful looking plugin, just very aesthetically pleasing, is Sausage Fattener and the color knob specifically. So this color knob is all the way up at like 70%. And here is without Sausage Fattener. I got a new friend, and here's with it. They think I'm cool. I got baby face. Here's without it. Should we just turn it down a bit, back to where it was? And that sounds so much better to me, and it fits in the mix better. It allows you to really glue the vocal in with the rest of the instrumentation. I've just found it to be much more sonically pleasing than simply boosting a regular EQ. I love using EQ to make cuts. As you can see here on this chain, on this vocal, I've got some EQ cuts, in the 2K range, the 1K, to take care of some nasal harshness, also a bit of a cut in the low mid range. But when it comes to boosting the highs and adding some crispiness, definitely recommend using saturation and harmonic exciter type of plugins. So this could be Sausage Fattener, and if you're a Slate Digital user, they've got some fantastic plugins as well, like Revival and Air EQ, right? Those types of plugins. So that is my final tip. That's probably my favorite mixing move when it comes to vocals, is instead of using an EQ, just use saturation to boost the highs. 'Cause I don't know who you are, but I'm screaming your name. You suck on my arm and I kiss your face. Climb into your car and you drove us away. 'Cause I'm going back to school. So be sure to go and implement at least one of these. You don't have to use all 5, that can be overwhelming, but just go and try one of these, whichever one sounds most interesting and appealing to you, and try it out on your own song and see if it can help add some impact to your indie pop vocals. So thank you so much for watching. If you want to dive deeper, again, as I mentioned before, I do have my vocal EQ and compression guide. You can find the link in the description below. It is going to give you some incredible clarity for becoming a pro at using EQ and compression on your vocals. So thank you so much for watching this video, my friend. I will see you next time.